So today we're going to be doing an interview with Miss Akena Allen, the owner, CEO, and sole proprietor of Mogul Chicks. And today we're just going to talk genuinely about, a few questions that I have for you. Talking about your life experiences, talking about things you've done, and overall just getting a better idea of who you are. And so
Mhm.
to kick things off, what prompted Mogul Chicks as the name for the business?
I was thinking about what my voice is, and I know I like business. I knew that there are things that I really genuinely like. And I always said I'd be a mogul. I just wasn't totally sure about what that was. But I always had a voice. And I always knew that my experience as a mom, as a single mom and being a woman and raised by single women, there's a lot of things that we're not able to say. And I was like, okay, maybe this is what we should have.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You mentioned being a mother. So you have one child, two
I
children.
have one child. I have a son. You're all about to say,
Okay.
actually.
What? It's crazy.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, okay, fair enough. So, in terms of your mission and your audience, who is it that you're trying to reach with your message? Or really, what is the message of Mogul Chicks? Is it empowerment of women? Is it creativity and art and aspirations of greatness? Like, what is it exactly that you're doing with Mogul Chicks?
Well, it started out me writing quotes, and I've always been kind of sharp. Being dyslexic, I want to say poetry was always like what I understood. It was
Okay.
like the coded things and so I decided to start empowering women and giving them quotes. And, my mom suffered with mental health issues, and I realized a lot of times it's stuff that we're not able to say. It's stuff that we had opinions on that because of financial reasons, we can't voice our opinions, especially in the workplace. So I decided to start writing quotes that helped me get through tough situations. It wasn't for likes, it wasn't for anything. It was just like, what am I going to tell myself? Because your inner voice is what typically leads how things go. So I wanted it to be a situation of what do I really like to say? What do I want to say tactically? And I just started posting them. And a buddy of mine kind of got me started about how different things are. And then I started finding backgrounds and just posting things and just to see where it goes. It's about empowerment. It's evolved from just women's empowerment. I'm going to be doing something on mental health and men's mental health. Um, Basically, understanding that as men are supposed to lead the household and home front, that there are
Mhm.
mental challenges that come, especially with minority men, Black men. So I want to highlight that because my son is grown and we've had conversations about different things. So it's about empowerment. It's about using my dyslexia as creativity, innovation. It's about thinking outside the box.
When we talk about thinking outside the box, when we talk about, let's focus, I want to focus on two parts, men and women. Let's focus on the women aspect of it first. When we talk about looking into the year 2026, and going back in history to from 2026 all the way back to the early 2000s, 1980s, 1960s, 1970s, in your experience today, um, what are some of the challenges that you hear from women in terms of their day-to-day lives, in terms of balancing the cultural, I don't know if cultural is the right word. There are times when women seem to have to balance being mothers, being in the workplace corporately, as well as balancing their own emotions and their own feelings and experiences. In your experience, what is maybe one or two common things that women are dealing with today that makes these things more of a challenge? And how can Mogul Chicks really help with that?
So what makes some things a challenge is that you're not able to show up as yourself. You're not able to give your opinion or have your opinion or thought be incorporated in a final decision.
Hmm.
And that is problematic because oftentimes when we aren't brought into the decision making process, then we're the ones that have to clean up.
Hmm.
And it's mainly a lot of minority women, Black women of color, that we are charged with that because our history, not because we wanted to be strong. And that's the second aspect. Oh, you're strong. I'm strong because I had to be, not because I wanted to be.
Where does that stem from?
It stems
I'm sorry to
from
interrupt.
well, being strong stems from during this transatlantic slave trade and just how we were forced to be strong in many diverse situations, whether we were forced to be a bedmate to the slave owners, to just anything, to delivering our babies in the cotton field, or not having adequate food, or trying to make something out of nothing, or trying to support our men as you all went through whatever. So it's you're a strong woman, and then in comes the situation with the government in some cases took the men out the household, so we had to be
Mm,
raised. So it's a challenge of being yourself, but not being overly used by societal norms that say you're strong enough to do it because your genetics has created it, and we understand it, but we break. We have thoughts, we have opinions, and how Mogul Chicks is able to push this along is providing an outlet like books and quotes and verse that motivates you, because sometimes you just need a thought that gets you through the day. Sometimes you just need something that you can look at and be like, I can do this. Well, it's okay
mm.
to cry. It's okay to break down. I'm human. I deserve this. And those are the things that Mogul Chick, I did to get myself through. All of my quotes are original quotes. And all of those quotes are what I told myself during the most challenging.
Mm. It's interesting. The thing that stood out to me is we talk about that corporate dynamic. Um, for most of us that are working 9 to 5s, it's really, there's just a certain environment that you have to walk into. And to your point, it's hard to be yourself when you have to go into an environment to perform, whether that's in sales, whether that's in marketing, whatever it may be. The objective is whatever the mission of the organization is. You talked about in your previous experiences your challenges with dyslexia and overcoming those challenges. Can you speak more into the mindset that you have to have not only as a woman but as someone who has that specific challenge of dyslexia, and the mindset you have to have in working in corporate America in order to be successful? Because we all need money and we all have to work in some kind of environment. But can you speak more to that?
So for me, it took me a minute to kind of not bump my head.
Okay.
And I went into the military and I was trying to figure out how to translate that. And I was a reservist, single mom, whatever. And going into corporate, it was hard because I messed up a lot of stuff. I mean, basic stuff. I mean, it was just like one thing after another in some cases. And then I decided to employ myself. And right, like right when I got pregnant with my son, I was working for myself. And within that, I started to tap into that entrepreneurial side of dyslexia. And that's how, in some cases, able to navigate the corporate world, because I don't fit into that. I come in here, I do this right here, I can add it, but I don't. All of the systems with corporate are challenging me. They're like a puzzle I don't understand. I'm visual. But it's also learning not to hide that, because in some cases, when people think dyslexia, they think dumb, they think illiterate.
Mm,
We do have challenges with reading, but we also have gifts. So it's going into industry. Like my first industry that I was really successful with was property management. I literally slipped into it and I literally was able to manage, and all of the gifts with dyslexia that come with it was able to open and dealing with things. And then I got into relocation management and construction support. And again, there are some challenges on like certain things visually for reporting. However, the execution of the mission and being able to look forward is just astonishing to me. I can look at a map and like my mind made, I want to say files. And in
mhm,
the files, I'm able to pull information that can relate back to what I'm currently doing from what I've done successfully. And it's understanding where your skill set is blooming so that you can command the money that you're looking for and not feel like, do I belong here? And fighting that imposter syndrome in corporate America when you see so many people have done so many things, and you got to say, I'm worthy. I'm worthy as well, and I bring an asset to this organization without
mm,
feeling, where do I fit in?
mm. What advice would you give to someone? And we're going to talk about more of
Mhm.
your career and more of your expertise in a minute. But for someone who, if you can imagine, is in that place that you talked about where it may not be complete darkness, but it's not a place necessarily of light, where the day to day just seems to be mundane. I think often we can get into this
Mhm.
habit of continuously going through the process, going through the motions. You show up to work, you put a smile on your face, but it's not necessarily reflecting the, what's happening on the inside. And so, can you talk about um, the different ways strategically that you can overcome that? And what I mean by that is there are different practices. Some people
Mhm.
do breathing exercises. Some people do
Mhm.
meditations in the morning. What practices do you usually encourage other women to do in order to get into that mindset for when they come to work, they can perform their job, perform it well, and ultimately succeed in where they're going?
I would say the first thing you do, you start out in the morning, you meditate, you pray, you kind of
Mm,
write down and write thoughts down and kind of like the colliding in your head and take like at least 5 minutes to yourself. The next thing I would say to do is if you can do some stretching, workout, a light workout to kind of get things moving in your brain so they're not sitting there. Motion moves things. Third thing I would do, I would say is the night before, excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. The night before, look at what you have to do for the next day. Be very clear about what your objectives are for that day and plan ahead. Because you may get hit with something, but at least you know what you're looking at least you know what this is. Those are the things that I would say do. And then also look at resources at work. If you don't feel like you're comfortable with that, then do your research on your own. Ask pointed questions about certain things that you know. Figure out what you know already. That's number one. What do you know already? And
mm.
then look at what you don't know and why the pieces are not there. And then ask, can you show me that what you're asking in another way? I need it visually. I need the auditory.
Mm.
And knowing which way you learn best is very key. And I had to learn that if I didn't know that, I wouldn't understand. And I can't tell you and give you information the way you're asking. But allow yourself extra time because
Mm.
if you're having challenges, give yourself extra time. Be ahead of the game. And it looks like you're ahead of the game, but really you'll be right there in the midst and you're able to make objective decisions.
So you would say it's more along the lines of being self-aware, aware of who you are and aware of, you know, where you're going towards.
Yes. Know your mission. Know where you're at. Know where you're at in your mission. Be ahead of the game and know when projects are due so that you can work on them incrementally and break them down and work through the challenges so that by the time your project is due, you don't have any anxiety and you
Mm.
miss things that you probably would have caught had you started early.
Preparation, self-awareness. As we talk about that, and I'm diving into the corporate world because that's something that all of us can relate to in terms of being able to perform in an environment. You have managed to rise in a lot of leadership roles and managerial roles within organizations, and not just obviously not managing in the sense of like this is a team of one or two, but managing vast projects, managing logistics for a lot of different projects and entities in order to come up with an established result that's going to last over the course of the next 10, 15 years for organizations. That story is not something that we see every day in America or even in the world. And so I'd like to talk to you about that gap where there seems to be those who are able to perform at where they are based on what we talked about earlier, which is not being able to understand who they are first and then understand why they're there in their mission, and also not having those strategies. What is the bridge to get from this person to where you are to be able to manage those multiple projects, whether it's property management or managing budgets, whatever it may be? How does someone tangibly go from this level to the next level? How can we get them to a place where they have the confidence? I'm not speaking about skill sets necessarily, but just the confidence to say, I'm capable, worthy, and able to perform at this level. Because you tell me if I'm wrong, the mental aspects, that mental leap from this level to that level is probably the hardest. Would you agree?
Yeah, it is. It definitely is the hardest. I would say find mentors. What I did was I found mentors and I sought them out and I was like, I know I can do this.
Hmm.
And it went from, I don't know why I'm here to what do I do best? What are my gifts, my talents, and my abilities? And what are the things that my brain tends to go right towards that I can go deep on?
Hmm.
And once I discovered that, that's your sweet spot. Oprah talks about that, your sweet spot. What's your sweet spot? Because once you get into your sweet spot, then you're able to bring an enormous amount of energy and knowledge to an organization and be okay with going deep in what it is that you like. But find mentors that help you along the way to challenge you to remove imposter syndrome, to let you know you belong there. I would say check your diet. Food is information. It means it goes to your brain, not just for what people are looking at aesthetically. Change your diet, change your friend group. Start
Hmm.
to read. You are the sum of the five people that you spend the most time with.
Hmm.
Have mentors that won't sugarcoat things for you, but also see your potential and help you burst what you are doing. That's what you have to do. And you have to find your tribe because, and that by itself is going to give you the confidence. And also, that group is going to show you how to navigate these challenges. I have them now. I have a friend coming over now. She's really good at one thing, but she's like, Akena, I need you for strategic purposes.
Hmm.
And so, how do we do this? Okay, come over, we're going to do something. But also, being a yoga instructor and a Reiki master, you learn about how the mind works and how the body works and how you can see things. Also, visualization. Where do you see yourself? Nothing else. Do a vision board.
Hmm.
Visualize what your life, where do you want your life? And start writing out things and not ignoring your negative thoughts. Sit with them and find out where they come from. There's a book called The Four Agreements. And within the Four Agreements, it says, you have to be true to yourself. Who are you without the world imposing their ideas on you? And get back to that. But you have to be at a point like, I want better for my life. How do I get to that point? And don't worry about chasing somebody else's dream. What do you have? Because more than likely, you're giving away some intellectual property, you're giving away some of your ability and your energy.
Hmm.
And what it is you're doing for work is not really what your dream is, then let your work fuel your dream. Meaning, I'm here to get a check, I'm gonna do your job, but I'm gonna siphon what I give you. I'm gonna show you I can do this, but I'm gonna build something else that's just for me.
Would you
And
say being a part of, excuse me, would you say that the personal goal and the personal ambition is just as important as the corporate goal?
it definitely is because, in a sense, if you go in saying, I'm trying to just climb this corporate ladder, then what you do become an act in a circus. Meaning, they will continually to light fire rings and set them higher for you to jump. And the whole time you're trying to do this, you're giving away your intellectual property because you're trying to prove to them that you're worthy. Luxury doesn't explain itself. Luxury just is. So take all of that and put it in your personal goal and your personal dream and your personal ambition. And it will keep you from seeking validation from somebody who is just trying to make a dollar off of what you do.
You have this knowledge and experience because of what you've been through. Everything you talked about comes from experience, both mentally and in a tangible sense of managing projects and people and logistics and getting meeting milestones and overcoming budget hurdles and all of those things. We talked earlier about how, in particular, women in these particular positions are still expected to perform despite, circumstances and tragedies happening individually in their lives. And if it's all right, I want to transition just a little bit into something that has happened to you personally. Um, Unfortunately, you have lost your mother over the last few months. Can you talk a little bit more about first, who was she?
So my mom, I was adopted, but my mom was a woman that, even though she didn't raise me inside the house, she raised me. She was incredibly intelligent, incredibly fearless, incredibly tactical, incredibly wise, very creative. She believed in research. She would always tell me, she called my middle name Lena, Lena, do your research. Because she would always tell me, people will tell you what they want you to know, but what did you find out on your own? Don't
Mm.
let people just tell you anything. She was unfiltered, uncut, which made me talking to her almost like talking to a best friend. That's what that was with her.
In that, obviously, we can see a lot of the same qualities in you in terms of research, in terms of going to get it, and in terms of being a strong individual. Can you talk more about the lessons she gave you in terms of that strength? What did that strength look like? As we talked about earlier, those dynamics socially that have led to, the ways that we operate now, especially as women operating in corporate America. How did she impart those lessons of strength upon you? And how have you taken those lessons to, again, for yourself, continuously improve, not just corporate America, but as an entrepreneur and making your own path?
One, when I went into the military, so I went into the military at 17 years old, and I went into the army. And so understanding she was definitely in my ear, I was delayed entry. So I was in 12th grade and I was what they call drilling with my reserve unit 1 week in a month. And so I would impart it on me or her was just pay attention and listen to what people are doing. But in a male dominated situation, you got to understand what's really going on. But research, people will tell you anything. And how she imparted that on me was everything I got was new. Look at it, read it from cover to cover. Even being dyslexic, she was just like, read it, just keep reading it. And that's how she imparted that. And how I translated that was going into an environment and I didn't know. It was look at the books around it. I've always found myself looking at a bookshelf inside of a corporate office because I want to see if what you're reading is what you're basically putting across the organization. And I would take pictures of books and I collected lots of books because I want to know the stem. She would always say, what is the root of where this, what's the motivation behind it?
Mm.
Because if you find the motivation behind something, you can pretty much figure out where something is going.
So her strategy was mostly figuring out the real things, the way that, what's really going on in the environment was the biggest thing. That's what it
And
sounds
reading
like.
the room and just watching how the people move. Because when you become confident, you start to become confident in who you are, you don't worry about validation.
Mm.
And that's what it's okay to be quote unquote strange. It's okay. I know who I am. I'm watching how you all pretend to, because you're playing a role in a party. You don't even know you're a pawn, but you think you're playing a political game. And when you take yourself out of it and you don't see yourself as, oh, I'm just helping them get or they're stepping on me. No, I'm I'm getting my check. My objectives are being made. My money is coming in. My bills are paid.
Right.
And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I'm not here to show you, and this is not show and tell. Not in kindergarten doing any of that. That's not what we're doing. So
Right, right, right.
be like, listen, stand up and have a backbone. You know,
Mm.
she was the eldest of three children. So she was the person taking care of a lot of her siblings, her two sisters and her brother. She was the person doing that. So you got to kind of look at those things and understanding epigenetics and understanding how that translates to that and being prolific and being okay with who you are.
Mm. Would you say that um, that power that she had, that ability to be able to provide for not only herself but for her younger siblings, translated into her work life and into her life in general? And would you say that those qualities are also true with you? Are you also following in the footsteps and taking care
Yeah.
of a bunch of people at the same time.
Sometimes, like, I'm a special needs advocate for relatives in my family because they know that's what I do. So I've
Yeah.
taken on a lot, but what I also learned and ascertained from her life, as they reflecting and talking to different people who knew her in her younger life, is that she also was weighed down. And that is an issue that is unfortunate with Black women, is that we silently break. And she silently
Hmm.
broke while she was in corporate America because she again was taking on everybody else's things, which led to her having us adopted because she wasn't able to raise us. And that is something that we don't look at. It is the silent crack in the foundation that nobody sees in a house because the house looks so pretty on the outside. But when you
Hmm.
look at the foundation under which that house sits, water can come in very easy because there's been so many hits. And no one
Hmm.
ever stopped to waterproof the house. That's that mental health. That's that taking time for yourself. That's that reorganizing and regrouping your energy in your spirit. That is a problematic situation for Black women. And it hit my mom. And I
Hmm.
learned in retrospect to her life as I start to think, making decisions and work and like, what do I want to do? Because when you go through a life when you don't do what you want to do, but everybody is expecting so much out of you, you don't know who you are. So when you walk into corporate America, you are just open to being everybody's support and not expecting or being afraid to ask for support.
In a world where we could go back in time, where you could go back in time and talk to your mother in those situations and circumstances that she found herself in, with providing and taking care of everyone, if you could take her into a room and sit her down and talk to her face to face as the woman you are now, what is the one thing that you would try to translate to her, to help her understand who she is, what her situation is? What advice would you impart upon her?
Mommy, no is a complete sentence. And I say no is a complete sentence because you're not the savior of everybody. And just because you have the ability to do something, it does not mean you have to do it. And they are grown people and they have to work out their lives for themselves. They are grown. They have made decisions that have caused repercussions and consequences, right? They are responsible for that. And you do not have an obligation to untangle their Christmas lights.
We have about 10 minutes left. I'd like to dive a little bit deeper into that, um, into those specific scenarios for someone who may be watching in the audience, someone who may be taking care of multiple people at once, in terms of a family member that may be in another state that may be in hospice, or an uncle that just needs some support, or a son or a daughter that just can't seem to get it all together. What, how does anyone really deal with the emotional weight of having to bear the burden of not helping someone that you deeply care about versus the self-preservation of knowing that giving more in this instance may lead to just a little bit more death, but that death will come later on. How does someone tackle these two, um,
Emo-
these conflicting emotions? Yeah.
well, so what you have to do is understand that if you've given them everything that you can, trust that they have to work it out and understand that they have their own path. And it's not that you love them, but praying for them and praying that God opens doors for them where they can see things because you can't hold everybody's hand because you need to hold your hand. And it's
Hmm.
hard. It's extremely hard to be like, I want to do something, I can do it, but then who are you? And what do you reserve for yourself? And you gotta be perseverant because you can't give on an airplane. It tells you the first thing to do, put your oxygen mask on first, and then put somebody else's on. Put yours on. Is your oxygen mask on?
Hmm.
And then see, as long as you're breathing fine, what do they need? And they may need to learn how to put theirs on as well.
Wow. Well, we don't have too much more time left, and I don't know when it's gonna finally go off. And so I think we'll go ahead and cut the interview short there. I do want to say thank you for joining us on this short conversation. We'll obviously have more videos like this. People can hit a like and subscribe in the video and reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, and we'll be sure to get back to you. So for now, thank you and bye bye.
Bye bye.